So last time we discussed about various terminologies. So this lecture is actually going to teach you various kinds of terminologies which are used in scattering and diffraction. So there is sometimes confusion. So one of the most important concept which you're going to learn is the scattering cross section. And as I mentioned last time, that this concept is useful wherever you, whatever technique you use, whether it is photon based or electron based or neutron based, be it Raman scattering or X-ray scattering or diffraction or okay. Also we already know wave particle nature, coherent and incoherent. I think it is there is a typo here. Anyway, so it will be clear. Elastic, inelastic, I think we already learned. This thing we are going to learn today, mean free path. And all these things have got practical implications. Actually, mean free path has also got practical implications, that it will tell you how thick your sample can be. So all these terminologies are not just theories. There is a deeper connection for there are much deeper practical implications. Actually, you may not realize at this moment, but many people sometimes they get because of immaturity or whatever, they think that it is just the theory and theory and theory. But you can't understand, believe me, this is not basically is not there is a deeper application. Without it you can't understand any application actually. And if you try to jump to the analysis, you will be only misinterpreting the images actually. Yeah. And we see misinterpretation of images time and again, because the concepts are not clear. And I minimize the use of equations. You have seen in all my lectures that I rarely show any mathematical formulae. So mostly it is deep physics, and so that makes your brain completely clear, to bring clarity. So in SEM we study backscattered electrons, secondary electrons, and we'll look at their importance. I think this was all clear. If you have any question, you may ask. So this was the most important slide of previous lecture, that how, I mean, it explains how the contrast in a TEM image is created. So it can be explained by mass contrast, thickness contrast, and crystallinity contrast or diffraction contrast. And the role of aperture, you can see the role of aperture here. The aperture is first blocking, I mean, here you can see that incident beam is tilted here. Here, incident beam. So the advantage is that you don't need to change the position of the aperture. You can see that detector and detector as well as aperture, you don't need to. It's more complicated to change something here. So you can see that usually you can change the angle to the diffraction angle. So you can basically change the angle of the incident beam. You can scan the angle. So whenever you meet the diffraction angle, so wave diffract at angle theta, and this is the diffracted beam, this is the straight beam, these are the straight electron beam, and these are the diffracted beam, you can see. And then you have this diffracted beam which are making the image, and that we understand that as a dark field image. And so if you have any question on these techniques, so please don't hesitate, because these are all very important techniques. Bright field, selected area electron diffraction, dark field imaging, these techniques should be used. And these techniques are mostly used techniques actually in T, and these are most basic techniques actually. Any question? Yeah. Here we understood the correlated, uncorrelated, coherent, and incoherent electrons. here we understood that mostly elastic scattering are usually, it's not written always, when even if we discuss about coherent, it usually coherent actually. So that means they maintain a phase relation between the primary beam, primary electrons after scattering. So electrons carry the phase relation. So that is useful when you do the electron diffraction. Otherwise, electron diffraction will be a problem. But higher angle, they're more likely that electrons will be incoherent. They will lose the phase correlation.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I'm Harsh Soni. I am having a doubt. Like
Yes.
during initial lectures, you said that HUDOF we use coherent source, and in yields we use incoherent source, and
No,
in
no,
elastic.
no, 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 no. I never said that. I said that Hada electrons uh, are elastic electrons.
Yes, sir.
I said elastic, not coherent, incoherent. So Hada electrons are actually the electrons which are used for Hada are elastic. There is elastic interaction, so they carry the same energy. There is no energy loss.
Okay, sir.
But in yields, there is an inelastic.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is the first time actually I'm explaining coherent and incoherent. This is the first time actually. Initially, I might have discussed a little bit about coherent, incoherent in one graph. So Hardaf, when I mentioned Hardaf versus yields, it is elastic versus inelastic. Harsh, is it clear? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else? Should I call the participant name by name or? Okay, so next thing is angular dependence of elastic, inelastic, coherent, incoherent. So inelastic scattering is almost always incoherent. Inelastic scattering, because there is a change in the energy, and then when the change in the energy is there, so then there is a loss of phase relation. As the specimen get thicker, fewer electrons are forward scattered and more are back scattered. Okay. Incoherent back scattered electrons are the only remnant of the incident beam that emerges from bulk non-transparent specimen. So basically in SEM, we discuss about that. Yeah. So backscattered electrons are incoherent. Okay. Yeah. And forward and backscattered we have already understood. Yeah. So let us look at the comparison between thin sample and thick sample, and that's where these two techniques differ. Mostly we study thin samples in TEM and thick samples in SEM. So you can see that this is coherent incident beam. You can see it here. So this is falling onto the thin specimen, and it is thin enough that some of the electrons will go into the forward direction, and these are elastically scattered coherent electrons. So these are elastic and coherent. Okay. Yes, and these electrons are used for your bright field image. These electrons are useful for bright field image. So if you collect them and then you process them, so you will get a bright field image. And now you have coherent elastically. So this beam is used for your Bragg diffraction or your dark field, or if you combine both of them, then you get HRTM. HRTM is basically is a two beam concept. You combine zero direct beam is basically 000 diffracted beam. It is not undifracted. We call it actually 000 diffracted actually. Okay. Yeah. So and then you have incoherent inelastic scattered beam. You have incoherent elastic beam. Okay. So now in bulk specimen, there is no electron coming to this direction because electrons, the sample is too thick to transmit the electrons. So what signals we have here? We have secondary electrons you have seen in the previous lecture series. And then we have backscattered electrons which carry the same energy. So these are elastic electrons, right? And then we have incoherent, yeah, these are again backscattered electrons which will scatter in all the directions, basically more than 90 degree. Yeah.
Sir,
So yes,
so good evening, sir. I'm Ansar.
yes, answer. Good evening.
Sir, I have a small doubt. You said in TEM we use thin specimen and in SEM we use bulk. Can we understand for transmitting of electrons we just use the thin sample, and for scanning only we require, so we use the bulk specimen like that? Can we understand the thing, sir?
Yes, you're right. And another way of understanding is that this backscattered signal will be much larger, much significant for bulk specimen.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah. So here, if you try to capture backscattered electrons, so signal intensity will be much weaker. Mhm. Yeah. So, but you're right that by default, if you have bulk specimen, so you cannot do TEM anyway. You cannot do TEM for bulk specimen anyway. It's not suitable. I mean, unless you want to just look at the particle morphology. So suppose let us look at suppose you have put 1 micron thick particle. Its thickness is 1 micron. Let us look at one image in one particle, and this thickness, this is the thickness, and this is 1 micron, and you put it in TEM. So what information you will get? So if when you are, let me change the color to explain you. I wish I had a blackboard. So effort actually goes much higher, but when we do digital teaching, so what is happening, that you have these electron beam which are falling here. So and they are falling here also, they are falling here also. So what will happen when you put this very thick 1 micron is a very thick sample. I mean it's quite thick. So here there won't be any electron, but here you will have electrons. It's like a shadow effect. You will have electrons here. So if you have a detector, I'm sorry, you can see it here. Yeah. So if you put a detector here, what will you see? You will see large intensity here, and then zero intensity, and then large intensity here, right? Wherever you have particle, you will see completely dark, completely dark. So what information you can obtain from such image? You can get the dimension of the particle, shape and size. So that's the only information you can get, right?
Like in the case of X-rays, no, sir.
No,
If
X-rays are
we
different.
okay, sir.
X-rays, in X-rays basically we don't do imaging. We use X-rays to get the diffraction pattern. So we get actually yeah, X-ray scattering can tell you indirectly the shape and size, but that is indirect observation, because then you have to in for example small angle X-ray scattering, you get basically you look at the angle, you basically rotate it, then you get angle versus intensity, right? And then you get some kind of pattern, and then you have to fit this pattern to get the shape and size of the particle in small angle X-ray scattering. And in X-ray diffraction, you do not, you get the information about crystallinity, the lattice planes. Here in small angle X-ray scattering, or small angle neutron scattering, you can get the information about the topography. But this is not the information is not direct. There is no image which you get, but you have to model the data. So model fit basically gives you information about the shape and size. Is it clear, Ansar?
Sir, I was telling about the medical X-rays, sir.
Medical X-ray. I'm sorry. Medical X-ray. Yes, you are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So in medical X-rays, you're right. Absolutely, you're right. I'm sorry. You should have mentioned.
Okay, sir.
We
Thank
normally
you.
don't discuss about medical X-rays. So yes, you have human and right. So you are right actually that you when you get the image here, so what you get is yeah, that is X-ray imaging. Actually, in fact, X-ray you are right. You know that X-ray imaging uh, came much earlier than X-ray diffraction. X-ray imaging was the immediate application of X-rays when Röntgen discovered X-rays. Actually, you know that he imaged his wife's
Yes,
hand.
sir. His wife. I know that, sir.
So that people that time there was no concept of atom. Nobody knew about the structure of atom and all kinds of things. There was no quantum mechanics, but they did not know how X-rays interact with the matter. Nobody had any knowledge, but that X-rays are harmful or nobody had any. It's very funny part. I'll teach you later on in this course. I teach that story. So
Okay, sir.
yeah,
Okay, sir.
I will teach you. So so X-ray imaging came much earlier than X-ray diffraction got popular. X-ray diffraction came probably much almost 15 years later. Yeah, and yeah, so yeah, you are right. Actually, X-ray imaging is the oldest technique in uh, in among X-ray techniques. Yes. Anybody
Okay,
else?
sir. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks for. But Ansar, thanks for bringing it up. I like when there is a participation. Yeah.
Thank you,
Anybody
sir.
else? Yeah. Animesh, Gopal.
Excuse me, sir. Yes, I have a
Yes.
question, sir. So, what is scattering losses, sir?
Scattering.
Losses.
Scattering loss is basically you here in this case, scattering loss is basically energy loss which happens once the particle has scattered. Okay, so that is energy loss.
Okay, sir. So, and how it will affect the imaging, sir?
See, it affects the. I will teach it in inelastic scattering. So this energy loss and its implications on imaging is very serious. You have asked very serious question actually, because I have mentioned it briefly. But energy loss, mostly the energy loss which happens, the smallest energy loss which happens in plasma, formation of plasmon. Uh, okay, so that energy loss is very small. It is in milli electron volt or few electron volt, but that creates a lot of problem in imaging. So it creates a haziness in the image qualities. So you see a lot of background noise in the TM images, and that's a problem actually. That's a big problem in TM images, even in electron diffraction. I'll show you a lot of examples that how
Okay, sir.
the scattering loss or energy loss in the scattering processes results into the noisiness in the TM images. It will be taught in the course in that series of elastic scattering,
Okay,
inelastic
sir.
scattering. Yeah,
Okay, sir.
yeah.
Yes.
And what Ansar was discussing about X-ray imaging, I'll be teaching in the same. It's a long, I think it will require 1 week, 3 lectures to explain inelastic scattering. Again, many people were asking questions about. I think Ansar asked this question earlier. I think somebody asked this about very nice question that how do you about Auger electron Ansar you asked long back this
Yes,
question, right?
sir. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah. How do you calculate the energy of Auger, right? So I'll be teaching it there about the detector. I have included one extra slide, but
Okay, sir.
already that information is there in my original slide. But then I thought let me explain you about the detector also, because you asked so more the questions, better the lecture become actually. Anybody else? Um, Kiran Asokan.
Oh,
Any
yes,
question?
sir.
Yes. Any question?
No, sir.
So far, no.
Why? You have understood everything?
Uh, Not like that, but almost I got that.
Okay. Vidya, any question? Vidya? Any question, Vidya? Sheetal, any question? Sheetal, unmute yourself. Sheetal, can you unmute yourself? Hi, Sarvani, nice to see you today. How are you doing? Sarvani, madam, how are you?
Fine, sir. Fine, sir. Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
I'm sorry, I was very busy. I could not reply to your emails. I will do that. Okay. I hope everything is fine at your home. And I
It is
got your
fine now,
message.
sir. It is fine now.
Okay, okay. I'm sorry I did not reply to your emails. I get a lot of emails, and I'm sometimes. Yesterday, I replied to some professor's email after 15 days. Actually, one professor of metallurgy from College of Engineering, and another professor from abroad, Czech Republic. So yesterday, I have replied with apology after two weeks actually. So many times I am very lazy. I'm not lazy, but lot of emails are there. So, but I do reply. Yeah.
Actually, I am facing so many problems in characterization.
Oh, is
So,
it okay?
yes,
Like,
sir.
like what?
TEM, using TEM, and also
Like
XRD
what kind of
analysis.
what you are not in access problem or interpretation or access?
Both, sir. TEM SS and XRD interpretation.
Um, yeah, but you can send the samples to NCL through official routes. We have very nice facility. So if you, I will, you can write me another email. So I will direct you to the NCL facility webpage, and there
Okay.
you get the detail how do you submit the samples. So through
Is there
university.
payment?
Yeah, payment is there, but payment is not that much for universities. There is a discount, 50% discount.
Then it is fine. It is easier for me.
Yeah, yeah, it is much better, and facilities are better run at NCL. They're much professional. And another thing is that you can talk to your HOD, HCU HOD, and they will make some arrangement with NCL,
Okay.
because a lot of SCU alumni we have at NCL. HCU and NCL.
Okay,
We have
okay, okay.
lot
Then
of Telugu.
it is so easier then.
Yeah, we have a lot of Telugus here actually. So
Okay.
a
Name
lot of
of
my
the
colleagues.
professors, alumni.
Alumni, there are many actually. One of my colleagues, BLB Prasad, is there. He's
Okay.
yeah. Our previous director was from SCU. Yeah, Professor Ashwini Nangia was from SCU chemistry.
Okay.
Yeah, he is crystallographer, XRD man.
Okay, okay. Then it
Ashwini
is
Nangia.
my life is so easier then.
Yeah, and I think many faculty members are from SCU. I know I can immediately recount my
Okay, sir.
friend BLB Prasad, and he's from Radhakrishnan's lab, I guess.
Okay, CV. Okay,
Radhakrishnan, huh?
TPR,
Ha, ha, yeah, yeah,
Radhakrishnan.
yeah. And I visit SCU quite a lot. I have personal friends in SCU, so yeah, I've been there many times actually.
Okay, sir.
Anyway, so you can write email to me and we'll discuss about it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
And
I will
Parvani,
accept.
like last time, please ask questions, because here these are young students. They are not asking questions actually. So if you ask questions, they will also ask.
Sir, no, sir. As a chemist, I know synthesis very well. So,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So how is the sample seen by electrons? How do they see sample? Do they see sample as collection of atoms? Definitely not. do they so let us understand how is the sample seen. So look at uh, so when electrons come towards the sample, so so different interactions can be explained by either by wave principle or by particle principles. We have discussed this in the previous lecture. So you can see that. So electrons look at the sample from purely from Coulombian interaction, nothing else, nothing else. They don't know whether it is your at some atom or another atom. They just see the charge. That's it. They just see the charge, and they see the density, the charge density or potential distribution. So now you can see where if the ions or atoms are uniformly spaced, so then these electrons will form uniform electron density here. If there is any variation, if there is any inhomogeneity here, so this is homogeneous field, right? The Coulombian field is homogeneous here. So if there is an inhomogeneity, for example, those ions, positively charged ions, so they are accumulated at one place. So then there will be some modulation in the electron density. So you can understand it like this. Okay. So another concept is single, plural, and multiple scattering. So this is very important concept when you decide thickness of the specimen, because you would like to avoid multiple scattering, because then you interpretation of TM images becomes complex if sample is too thick and electron is getting scattered more than 20 times. Actually, this is quite dangerous actually. So this should be avoided. And plural scattering is when the electron undergoes scattering more than once. Ideally, electron should undergo scattering only once. So we'll study that into the electron mean free path. So electron mean free path is the distance traveled by the electron between two scatterings. So electrons, ideally sample should be thick, thin enough that there is no multiple scattering, and electron should look at one atomic layer. But it normally does not happen that so incoming electron sees only one scattering event. So more scattering events makes interpretation more and more complicated. So this is what is explained here. So thinner the better is the criterion in electron microscopy. And I think somebody asked this question about difference between X-ray diffraction and TEM, right? Electron diffraction and X-ray diffraction. So this is going to be, that was the last question. This is going to be focus of this lecture series. I'm going to teach you in detail, but I can just tell you in short. So here you have kinematic theory, and it is basically dynamic. Okay, dynamic scatterings. What it means is that in kinematic theory, you do not discuss about multiple scattering. Here, dynamic diffraction, you have to consider multiple scattering. So for the same, what I'm trying to tell you is that for the same thickness of the sample, same thickness, if you discuss X-ray diffraction, so because X-rays interaction is relatively much weaker in comparison to electron interaction with the specimen. So for the same thickness, you can consider single scattering for X-rays, but it's very difficult to consider single scattering for in the case of electrons. So that's why you consider dynamic diffraction, which I'll teach much later. Okay, there are slides associated with that. Okay, so let us understand. So transmitted, yes.
Sir, how thin we have to make the sample?
Your answer will be coming very soon. Okay, don't worry. Okay,
Okay,
your
sir.
answer will be very systematically addressed in a very systematic way. Okay, so wait for some time. I'll give you a proper answer. Okay, yeah.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. wait for at least 2 lectures. Yes. I'll lead you to the conclusion in such a nice way that you will like it actually. I can tell you right now, but then you will ask this question that why that, what is the science behind? So I can, if I tell you 20 nanometer for gold, then you have to cram it right now. And if I told you 400 nanometer uh, for a polymer, but that does not, you are converting yourself into a scientist slowly. So that answer does not help you, right? This answer does not, you have to just memorize this answer, and I do not focus on memorizing anything. So my effort is always to tell you the reason, logic behind these numbers actually. So I'm going to tell you the science behind these your question actually, right? And that takes actually some time. It takes effort. There is no shortcut, unfortunately. I would have finished this lecture very briefly by giving your answer directly, your answers actually. But the journey to that answer, why, the science behind that makes you a scientist actually. And otherwise, I'm a person becomes a technician actually. Okay. Anybody else? Any other question? Yeah. So transmitted. So this is another surprising thing. You might get surprised by this slide. So when I say that this is your sample, and then you have these electrons which are coming here, right? And for example, there are 5 electrons which are coming, and okay, and 2 electrons are transmitting in this direction. Of course, 1 electron, just for explaining, 1 electron is back refracted. Probably one out of that 1 electron is for Hada or whatever, and rest of 1 electron may be some other process. There are multiple processes, right? So there is another sample where you have 3 electrons which are transmitted. So now question comes that these electrons which have transmitted successfully through this thickness. So have they missed the so what is exactly happening? So suppose we look at the nucleus and electron orbiting around the nucleus. So did they miss seeing the atom? What is going on? No, they never can miss actually, because when the electron comes closer to the atoms which are part of this material, so they are already experiencing the Coulombian interaction. The moment electrons come closer to the matter, they already start experiencing the Coulombian interaction, right? So it is not just like that they don't see the presence of I mean, you can conclude that mathematically, but physically it does not happen. Mathematically we will conclude that at the end of this lecture, this presentation, that if you look at the mathematical picture, you may get fooled at oh, these electrons are not they're just passing as if light through the glass. In fact, I taught in the spectroscopic lipsometry course. Some of my students are here. They will remember that I taught there that light, when light transmits through the glass, it does not mean that the photons go through the glass uninteracted. So they interact actually. This statement itself is wrong actually. This statement itself is wrong. So photons, when they transmit through the glass, in the visible spectrum, we can see that light is almost 100% the light, the visible spectrum photons are allowed. Actually, there is 100% transmission through this borosilicate glass. So does this mean that photons do not see glass, do not interact with the glass? This statement is, please, this statement is incorrect, factually incorrect. Okay, and that's what I explained in the spectroscopic ellipsometry class. And many students actually, they were surprised to know the behind the curtain story. Anyway, that is a different course and different subject, so I'll not discuss that here. Yeah, so in TEM, electrons are not simply transmitted, right? This and to correct you, actually, this statement is in the book, and this statement is incorrect. Okay, this statement is taken from this William Carter book, and I have taken it as it is. But this statement is factually incorrect. So there are actually mistakes in this book. I have many times I have seen a lot of problems in this book. Okay, I talked to the author also once. Anyway, uh, so when you are advanced enough, then you start realizing that there are problems in the book also. So books should not be always taken as a some gospel truth that there is no problem in the book. There is always some scope of improvement in the book as well. So you can see that this is a specimen here, strontium titanate substrate, and this is one of my favorite material, bismuth iron oxide. And then you have nickel ferrite islands here. And this is the electron diffraction of nickel ferrite, these nano islands inside the bismuth iron oxide matrix. So let us understand the scattering cross section, differential scattering cross section, and how these terms depend upon various types of scattering. So physics student might already know these concepts, but scattering cross section is always denoted by sigma. Okay, and differential scattering cross section is denoted by d sigma over d omega. And it is the same in X-ray diffraction also. So this, if you study X-ray diffraction, our this student from SCU, she was Sarvani was mentioning. So that's where sometimes you have problem in interpretation of images or X-ray diffraction pattern. Okay, if you so for that you need to understand what is happening you know at the electron level actually. So you have incident flux, which is n particle, right? And then you have, this is your specimen. So, and you are looking at the flux here. So what exactly happens at a particular angle? Okay, for example, if I draw a line here, so I'm interested that in within this area, how many electrons or X-ray photons have got scattered. Or for example, or another question can be like from this angle to this angle, the slice actually. Okay, how many electrons have passed through? Why this question is important? This question is important because you are, when you do the X-ray diffraction or electron diffraction, you are looking at certain angle actually, right? And then you form the intensity. When you look at X-ray diffraction pattern, I think some of you might have seen X-ray diffraction pattern. So this 2 theta versus intensity. So this angular distribution is in fact coming from here itself. And in fact, if you look at this pattern, electron diffraction pattern, it is actually, you are looking at pattern at different angles. So this is these are the electrons which are scattered at 0, at 0 degree. Okay, and these are actually electrons which are, if I draw it here, okay, so this is your specimen, and these are incoming electrons. So the straight beam, which is undifracted or diffracted at 0 angle, this is this beam. Okay, and if you look at certain angle theta, and this is this beam, and this is this beam, and for example this, so basically if you rotate this 360 degrees, so it's forming like a cone actually. It's forming like a cone like this. This is a cone actually. Okay, so any scattering, even in the dynamic light scattering, any technique, even in Raman scattering, you talk about scattering cross section. I'll teach you in Raman also. So this concept is very important. So scattering cross section is a hypothetical area which describes the likelihood of electrons or another particle being scattered by another particle, right, or matter, right? So it is not the same as geometrical cross section. Please note that it is completely different. For example, so for example, if you come in front of a light source, suppose you are standing and there is a light source in a dark room, and there is a light source behind you. So your body contour becomes it blocks the light, and then you see the shadow which is in proportional to your body size, for example. Okay, so okay, but it does not happen here. Okay, for example, if you consider gold nanoparticles, and there is okay, so there is some visible light which is falling onto the gold nanoparticles, which shows surface plasmon resonance. So we see that suppose surface plasmon resonance frequency is 520 nanometer. We see that even if the light which is coming a little bit far from the sample, this gold nanoparticle will be scattered actually. Okay, it's like an aura. You have seen aura, in images they show an aura, extended image around a person. Okay, so just consider that it's similar to that. Okay, so there is sometimes electric field which is extended beyond the particle dimensions, but the reverse is true in in case of electron microscopy. So the atom is not seen. For example, atom dimension is, for example, this atom dimension is 2 angstrom. So incoming electron does not see this atom as 2 angstrom, but it will see it as a fraction of these physical dimensions, actual dimensions. And you will see at the end of this lecture, and you'll be surprised to look at this. So this concept of scattering cross section and differential scattering cross section is highly practical term. Please believe me, you cannot understand any of these techniques which I have been discussing without understanding this concept. So you can see that when we talk about differential scattering cross section, we are just discussing the slice of the diffracted flux which is falling onto this into this angle. For example, your detector is shaded part. Okay, so this is scattering cross section, and then you can you mostly discuss that in the radian. Okay, because of the convenience, nothing else, just convenience. Yeah, and this has a unit of area, pi r square. Pi r square. So it represents the probability that a scattering event will occur. Yeah. So let us understand this from following concept. I think this is closer to the our day-to-day experiences. So it will. I always teach it through this example. So let us understand the difference between elastic interaction and inelastic interaction, elastic cross section and inelastic cross section. So the analogy is basically, for example, you you take a window which is 1 square feet. Okay, 1 square feet window, and you whatever, I mean, it can be any other thing, and you are throwing 1 square feet window, right? 1 feet, 1 foot and 1 foot. Okay, 1 square foot, and and then you throw the ball onto this glass window 10 times, and out of 10 times, one time once this glass this ball ends up breaking this glass window, and 9 times this ball is bounced back. So in physics language, the inelastic cross section will be 0.1 square feet, and the elastic cross section will be 0.9 square feet. Did you note this? Is it clear to you? So that is the difference between cross section. So that is not the actual area physical dimensions of this glass. Is it clear? Hmm?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Vidya, it is clear. Is it clear, Vidya? Vidya, can you message me, Vidya? Vidya, at least you can message me if you are not able to speak here, because it's a consistent problem here. I hope you can message me.
Hello, sir.
Just a moment, Bhavna. Vidya, are you there? Otherwise, I will consider you absent. If you don't type me back here in the chat box. I have to inform your PhD guide that you are absent in the classes. In the last class, I heard that there is a problem with your mic, but it does not seem to be the problem with the mic. I'm taking you out of the class, Vidya. Okay, it's not very polite that you don't answer. I'm going to remove it. I'm going to remove you. Umasharan Sahu, are you there? Umasharan Sahu, are you there? If people have,
Yes, sir.
yeah, any question?
Yes, sir. No, sir. No.
Pawan, any question, Pawan?
No, sir.
Tushar is from computational background, so yeah.
No, sir, no question.
So if anybody knows, if you are friend with Vidya, tell her that I 2 times I tried to contact her, and I realized that she is not near to her computer because she's not even texting back. If you have a problem, if somebody has problem with the microphone, at least person should have courtesy to text back. But it seems that this is the problem with the students. There is no courtesy. I'm actually giving time today. I should be spending time with my student or on myself. But students don't have courtesy actually. Yes, any question? Yes, Bhavna ji. Who is there?
Manisha, sir.
Manisha, please ask.
Sir, actually, I didn't get this. What does this imply in elastic cross section and elastic cross section here? I didn't get this, sir.
Yeah, so what it means that scattering cross section is it represents the probability of that event to happen. So scattering cross section, elastic is scattering cross section, the area represent the probability of, for example, if I tell you.
And actually, I was asking that only why you are converting this probability into this area. There is a probability.
It is actually it helps me to compare between the likelihood of 2 events. For example, I want to know whether there is a larger probability for example, it helps me to, for example, this Mayur asked this question about elastic versus inelastic. Yeah, it's very good question. I'm trying to find some, I have an example in my mind. Let me erase it and give you that example. Very good example is the chemical analysis of energy dispersive spectroscopy. I think it's very popular among chemists, versus Auger. Now, if I tell you that probability of EDS signal is weaker for low Z elements, and is stronger, and this is okay, weaker for low Z and stronger for high Z elements, and reverse is true for Auger, right? So how do I explain this? Both are actually inelastic processes. So I explained this based on the cross section. So that means uh, scattering cross section for this event to happen is smaller in comparison to Auger. Okay, that is a probability that electron will undergo the production of X-rays is much smaller than the production of Auger scattering event. Got my point? So that area basically represents, so area is basically, it's just to facilitate the conceptual understanding of these varying amount of scattering events. So it's basically a comparative picture. So even if you compare between EDS and Auger, or you compare, for example, backscattering versus forward scattering, so you will see a lot of applications of these concepts in this course. Actually, you will see a lot of applications actually.
Okay, sir. I
Yeah,
got
yeah,
it now.
yeah.
Thank you.
And I let me tell you through one picture. For example, this picture. So, for example, here you have copper sample. Suppose you made copper sample, and here you made gold sample. Okay, and thickness in both the cases is 100 nanometer. Here also it is 100 nanometer, and and here in both the cases we have 1000 electrons bombarding here, and with the same energy, 1000 electrons here and 1000 electrons here. Everything else is the same, everything else is thickness is the same. Only difference is that this is low Z element, this is high Z elements. Now uh, this is basically this represent the scattering trajectories actually from this scattering trajectories. So now suppose so to answer your question that how does it help me, so it helps you to, when you put the detector here, you know that what kind of signal you're expecting. So you can see that here you are for copper you're not expecting. So the scattering cross section for higher angle scattering events is much lower for copper in comparison to gold. So that will be my definition. That will be my, because probability is less. So scattering cross section for electron scattering at this angle is much lower than this. You got my point? So
Yes,
it is
sir.
just it just helps me in defining the language. Actually, it gives a proper flavor to the language. So I can just calculate. So for example, if I define one area, for example, some pi r square, some area. So I put a detector here, one small window, and I start calculating that how many electrons are actually coming. I'm counting this area, and same area if I put here. So then I can safely say that a scattering cross section. Now I will use this term differential scattering cross section, because the scattering cross section is basically entire this area, right? From this, okay, integration actually over this area. This is actually differential scattering cross section for a between an angular from theta to theta plus d theta, right? Got it, right? A small, like, when if you have a cake, a slice of the cake, some slice of the cake. So for example, you distributed cashews in a cake, and okay, and you cut one slice between theta to d theta, and you say that what is the probability that you will find one cashew nut in this slice, in this small slice. So then you can say that this is the probability, but here actually it is scattering cross section. So so I can if I give you the number, then you will be immediately, if I publish this number and somebody has to look at it, then somebody knows that actually, if I say that differential scattering cross section for copper from this angle to this angle is this value and this. Now you tell, I tell you a very practical thing. Another practical example. It will shock you, actually, all of you. Probably you will not see this in X-ray diffraction class. I hope this girl is there. Sarvani, please look at this. This is for you. This I have taken from Kaliti book. How many people know about Kaliti, book of Kaliti, X-ray diffraction? This is basically
Sir, I know.
Sir, I know, sir.
Many people know. So I have copy pasted this from, so this is the application of scattering cross section. And this is one of the most important appendix, actually, one of the most important appendix. So this is, you can see that these are, you can see there are more actually, but I just to show you the example, these are actually atoms or ions. Let me select my pen. Yes. So you can see this column represent increasing number of Z, right? And here, if you see, these values are actually, this is, what is this value? What are these values? You can see that these values are decreasing. For example, you will take any particular ion or atom. For example, you take any, you choose this magnesium, magnesium, and if you choose that at 0 angle, so 0 this value, so this is sine theta divided by lambda. Lambda is fixed anyway, right? For example, for copper K alpha.
1.54.
Yeah, whatever it is, I don't care. 1.545, whatever it is. I mean, I don't really memorize things, but so what is varying? So lambda is fixed. So we can ignore lambda because it's a fixed value here in one typical experiment. So now sine theta is changing, right? Sine theta is increasing here, right? Because this value is increasing. So this value sine theta, so because lambda is fixed, so and this entire value is increasing. So sine theta is proportional to theta at smaller angles, right? So that means your scattering angle is increasing. So what these appendix represent, that suppose you put this magnesium atom here, and you are bombarding X-rays. So what is the probability that you will, what is the probability that this X-ray will reach here at zero angle, and what is the probability that it will reach at another angle, whatever is the value? I mean, this is not the theta value, this is sine theta by lambda. Okay, and at higher angle, so if you see from this table for magnesium, so this value is 12, which is larger. So there is larger forward scattering, and if you see it is going down at 10.5. Okay, then it's a conical. Please note that it is conical. It is not like this angle is conical. You understand? Another cone. Let me draw. It's like your birthday cap. When I say this is because X-rays will be diffracting in a cone, right? In a three-dimensional. So there will be another cone. Okay. And then there will be another cone. So now you see that within this cone, for this magnesium atom, so probability that X-rays will be coming here is decreasing. You can see that as a function of angle. So this is basically differential scattering cross section. This is differential scattering cross section, right? And if you take square of this, if you take square of this, then you get actually intensity, X-ray intensity. If you want to calculate the intensity, you just take the square of this. You take the square of this value. Now, what is the application of this? Suppose you put this, this magnesium atom is scattering in this fashion, okay? and you put then now this is for only for single atom. Now if you put another magnesium atom, another magnesium atom, another atom, another atom, now you know that this is scattering like this is scattering like this is scattering like this is scattering, you know. And then now you basically you have this X-rays coming here, and then you, what you do in X-ray diffraction, you scan it as a function of 2 theta, right? Answered, right? Answer.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So what exactly? So now you're interested that at particular 2 theta, how many X-rays will be reaching? So it will be basically a collection of atoms, collection of X-rays which are getting scattered at that angle from this atom, this atom, this atom, this atom. Now it will be basically interference pattern, interference, because there is a phase relation, right? Okay, so some of them, so this is basically you basically multiply atomic scattering factor with a structure factor, and that basically forms your X-ray diffraction peaks. Right? When you plot intensity versus 2 theta, is actually it is basically structure factor multiplied by these values. Why? Because you are putting some structure, and same thing is true for electron diffraction, same thing is true for neutron diffraction, same thing is true. Of course, neutron diffraction form factor is not it's random. We'll discuss about this. Is it clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So anybody, Bhavna madam, Dr. Bhavna?
Sir, what is the name of these values?
Sorry?
What we say about to these values, like any typical name is there?
Yeah, this is called atomic form factor. Atomic form factor, atomic structure factor or form factor, you call it. Okay. These are
Yes,
the
sir.
values, atomic structure factor. This atomic scattering factor, sorry, atomic scattering factor or atomic form factor, they are two different, okay, they are two different names, but they are same. So atomic scattering factor is the probability of you know, that particular atom scattering at that particular angle. Okay, that is a probability. Okay, so basically it represents your scattering cross section, differential scattering cross section. So this is indeed a differential scattering cross section value. समझ में आ गया? Did you get?
Yes, sir, yes.
Okay, so now you understand what I'm, you know, I am spending a lot of time on this lecture. It may sounds theoretical, but without understanding these terms, atomic scattering factor, you cannot understand any of these techniques, be it neutron diffraction, be it X-ray diffraction, be it you know, photons, nothing. It's most important thing. Believe me, I'm stressing it a lot. You have to understand this. And in fact, for catalysis student, you should know it by heart, actually. I mean, for example, you take any zinc oxide. Suppose you take any material, alumina or zinc oxide or anything, and you dope manganese or something inside this. So now what is the how will you know that what will be the change in the X-ray diffraction peak intensities, whether it will one particular peak will increase or decrease? Why should? So these answers you can solve from, in fact, we got this question in one of our manuscript, on solar photovoltaics. One of my former student, Dr. Shubha Sadhu, okay, she got this question. She replaced part of zinc. She was chemistry student from West Bengal, from Vishwa Bharati, MSc, from very bright student. And then she went to US for postdoc in a very, I mean, this photon lab, whatever it is, very prestigious lab. Yeah. Anyway, so the question was that when you replace zinc with some other element, and there is a change in the X-ray diffraction profile, intensity profile, how do you explain this? So I told Shubha, just look at this table and you can explain it. So she was able to explain that question by reviewer very easily, because you can if you replace, for example, magnesium with aluminum, you know that that at that angle this intensity is increasing because your structure is the same. Considering that your structure atom is at the same place, suppose you have some lattice and you have atoms at the same place, and suppose this is a magnesium lattice, and if you replace one magnesium with aluminum, so what will be the change in the X-ray intensities? So now you can see that at this angle, at every angle actually, but you can see at any angle, so you can see that there is an increase in the intensity. Okay, but structure is the same, then you can always compare. If the structure is changing, then the answer is complicated. You got my point? Because structure is also changing. So final intensity profile is basically multiplication of atomic scattering factor and structure factor. I'll explain it. Oh, I'm sorry. So is it clear to you? Or first time, I mean, it will be repeated
Sir?
2 times. Yes.
Sir, as you told, same structure, magnesium is of HCP structure and aluminum is of FCC, no, sir. How it could be same?
No, I'm just giving you some example. Suppose structure remains same. I'm just some random example.
Okay,
Just
sir.
it's just imaginary example. Suppose the structure remains the same. That's what I said. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the you can see that this is what I was explaining. So differential scattering cross section is in fact your atomic form factor. Okay. And when you, so this is basically the property of atom, and if you multiply it by the property of the structure, like how the structural property, then that basically defines the peaks, actually particular HKL peaks which you see in X-ray diffraction. They are defined by the multiplication of electronic property of one atom multiplied by the how they are placed in the lattice. So this basically brings the structural information, and this brings the probability that atom will scatter that particular radiation, whether it is electron or X-ray photon. Please try to understand. It's a very important concept. Bhavna madam.
Yes, sir.
Any comment or suggestion or anything?
Sir, this is very important, and I think after so many years, this is clarified to me now. I was always having a question why they talk about cross section. So it was not clear. Yes, sir.
So,
Thank you, sir.
she is a very senior scientist, Dr. Bhavna Joshi, and so you can see. I invited her comment because so you understand the importance. She has spent years and years. So if she's validating the importance of whatever I'm teaching, if I'm spending a lot of time today on this concept, so believe me, it is not just theory. Bhavna madam, you will
Yes, sir.
please explain to them. It is not theory, it is highly applied thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Huh?
Yes, sir. Maybe yes, sir. After seeing so many XRDs and all this, now my clarity is more, like now that picture is more clear to me, like why this is so important.
Yeah, and people normally don't teach this actually.
Yes,
Right?
no, sir. No, sir. Nobody highlight this. I agree.
Nobody, because it requires efforts. It requires effort to put this explanation into the brain of the young students.
Yes, sir.
So otherwise, I would have easily skipped this. Why will I spend a lot of time here?
Yes,
right?
sir. Now I got your point exactly. Yes, sir.
मेरा काम तो बहुत आसान हो जाता ना, मैं तो इसको skip करके चला जाता था, आगे चला जाता दूसरी स्लाइड पे.
हाँ, sir.
हाँ, मोस्टली लोग ऐसा ही करते हैं, नहीं पढ़ाता इसको.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Anybody else, please?
Sir, I have a question. Like
Yes,
it was
yes.
in my mind. I think I am clear now, but still I want to ask. Like when we talk about cross section, do we consider that shadowing part also?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Shadowing part is only for the is objects which we see in day-to-day life. Here,
Okay.
basically, I will explain it. I will take you directly to the last slide. I can explain. So this slide is important for you.
Okay.
This will surprise you. So this will answer your. So for example, if you calculate for electron energy in this range, which is most commonly used electron energy, so elastic interaction, elastic cross section is this actually, okay, which is actually 0.1 angstrom multiplied by 0.1 angstrom, right?
Okay.
Which is a very small fraction of an atom. If you notice,
Yes. Yes,
for
sir. Yes, sir.
100 kilo electron volt, these atoms are transition metal atoms are seen. Suppose, for example, a typical size of the atom. Manisha, what is it like? For example, for what is the size of the manganese atom? Manganese or cobalt diameter? Manisha, choda Google karo. मनीषा और भावना मैडम आप गूगल करेंगे थोड़ा?
Yes, sir. Sir, I'm checking.
It's 53 picometer in case of magnesium.
53 picometer, right?
Picometer. Yes, magnesium. Okay.
Yeah. So 53 picometer means, right?
0.5.
It is radius or diameter.
Angstrom.
It diameter or radius? It should be radius. It must be radius. It must
Yes,
be
sir.
radius.
It's atomic radius. Yes, sir.
It's a radius. It's not. It cannot be diameter. So diameter is roughly 1 angstrom, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, roughly 1 angstrom, na,
Yes.
diameter.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. So for 1 angstrom diameter of a given atom, this electron, if it is elastic cross section, it sees this dimension as 1/10 of this.
Okay.
This is what I was trying. Manisha asked this brilliant question that how are they related? So it sees it's a very that it does not. I mean, it's a very small object actually, and you will be surprised to know that for the same energy, same atom, same size of atom, inelastic cross section is further smaller. So it is seen as if it is 10 to the power minus 13 meter by 10 to the power minus 13 meter. So this is basically a fraction of a picometer, right? It is basically 0.1 picometer, right? 0.1 picometer by multiplied by 0.1 picometer, right? Am I correct? Right? So you can see that it sees this atom in a very small size, because so that means the probability, what is the physical significance of this number, that probability of scattering, elastic scattering cross section is so small, and inelastic cross section is much more smaller actually. So probability of elastic scattering cross section is many order of magnitude smaller than elastic one. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So now you can see that if you put these numbers into this equation, pi r square, so typical scattering cross section radius is so small actually. It is a fraction of an angstrom. 1/10 of an angstrom. 10th of an that's what I was telling. 10th of a radius of an atom, right? Right. 1/10 of it. Okay. This is very serious practical, okay. So what that indicates physical significance, it indicates that scattering is localized to the inner core or core shell, which is closer to the nucleus, to a particular, okay. So when you, so that means inelastic cross section is even much more localized to a small area actually, because nucleus is very small, right? Inelastic cross section means electron is going very close to the nucleus, and nucleus is small in size. So that's what it sees actually. It's a physical significance, right? Yeah. So that's what I've been explaining from the beginning of this lecture, that electron does not see atom as a solid ball. Please remove this concept from your mind. There is nothing as such as there is no atom actually. The atom is illusion. Atom is just a fake concept. Electron does not. That's question we have been debating. That how the matter is seen by the incoming electron. It is not seen as collection of atoms. And most of the teachers, they teach the matter. These Bhavna madam, you were there in this spectroscopic ellipsometer course also. There I also taught the same thing, that photons do not see matter as a collection of atoms.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
problem is that we have to unlearn the concept of atoms. हम लोग एटम पे अटक गए तो आगे कुछ नहीं सीख पाएंगे. एटम का कंसेप्ट हमें अपने दिमाग से निकालना पड़ेगा. वो सब फेक कंसेप्ट है.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Anybody else? Answer, is it clear? Answer, madam.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Vidya, you are not supposed to be in the class. I am taking you out. You have to write an apology with the copy to your guide. Okay, I am removing you from the class. I am removing Vidya because you did not answer 2-3 times. You did not even message me. I asked you to message me, and you're supposed to fix the audio problem if you have any. This cannot be taken for granted that you have repeatedly you have audio problem. But you did not reply to my chat, Vidya, earlier. Where are you, Vidya? Are you in Pune, or can you type in the chat box? Are you in Pune, or where are you? So there is hostel, there is internet connection. Why did not you type my? Why did not you reply to my earlier question in the chat box? That there is no explanation, Vidya. So I am removing you from the class, and you have to. No, you have to fix it. Actually, you have to fix it. Whatever it is, you have to fix it. You have to fix it. Otherwise, I mean, I'm not responsible for all kinds. I can teach. I can focus on teaching. That's my effort. But if the students are not participating, then that is very annoying for me. I feel like not teaching actually. I mean, I'll be doing something else. Why should I teach here? Please take it seriously. I want only a few 5-6 serious students. I don't want army of 20 students, and I don't want them. People who are well prepared with the, okay. I spent 75,000 rupees last semester from my own pocket to teach. So I hope you do this effort. You get fellowships. You can buy your laptop. You get fellowships, right? You get much more fellowships actually than what we used to get in our PhD. And so this excuse is, if I can spend money from my pocket, 75,000 rupees to teach, which NCL does not support, and you're telling me there is a computer problem, and you're getting too much fellowship, and almost, I think, more than 30,000 rupees, and you can't fix your computer. You cannot fix. It's unpardonable actually. At least you spend some money. Actually, I'm using all these computer and this device from my own money, not from NCL. Okay, anyway, please digest this concept, because I'll upload this lecture, and then you digest this. Okay.
So the previous PPTs also, sir.
Yes, I will share with you the previous PPTs also.
Okay, sir.
And,
Sir,
yes.
so Manisha here, sir, I want to ask, actually, is it possible